The woods stood before them, imposing, dark. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the rustling of unseen creatures. The trees, ancient and gnarled, seemed to reach out with skeletal branches, their leaves like watchful eyes. A shiver ran down the spines of the five friends, a sense of foreboding settling over them. The path ahead was swallowed by the oppressive gloom, the sunlight struggling to penetrate the dense canopy above. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves. It clung to their skin like an invisible shroud. Despite their initial excitement, a sense of unease began to creep into their hearts, whispering that they were not alone. The woods had secrets, they could feel it, secrets that whispered on the wind.
Let's go.
"Mark!" the de facto leader said, his voice a nervous tremor in the stillness. He adjusted his backpack, trying to ignore the prickling sensation on the back of his neck.
You sure about this, man?
Ben asked, his usual bravado faltering. He glanced nervously over his shoulder as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows.
Don't be such a chicken.
Emily scoffed. Though her voice lacked its usual confidence, she tried to sound brave, but her grip tightened on the compass in her hand.
Yeah, come on, scaredy cats.
Jessica chimed in, linking arms with Emily, though her forced smile couldn't quite hide the flicker of fear in her eyes. Only Chris remained silent, his gaze fixed on the darkness that awaited them, a strange premonition settling in his gut. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were making a terrible mistake. They ventured deeper into the woods, the sunlight fading with each step. The silence was broken only by the crunch of leaves beneath their feet and the occasional snapping of a twig. They tried to keep their voices low, their laughter strained and uneasy. The wind picked up, swirling around them, carrying with it a low, mournful whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It rustled the leaves, creating fleeting patterns that resembled faces peering down at them. Emily swore she saw a figure darting between the trees, but when she pointed it out, there was nothing there.
Did you hear that?
Hear what?
That whispering.
She replied, her gaze darting around nervously.
It's just the wind, Jess. Relax.
But even he couldn't ignore the growing sense of unease that permeated the air. The woods were alive with unseen eyes. He could feel it. The path, barely visible now in the fading light, took a sharp turn, leading them deeper into the heart of the woods. The trees seemed to press in closer, their branches intertwining overhead, choking out what little light remained.
Where are we?
She consulted the compass in her hand, but the needle spun erratically, unable to find north.
I don't recognize this part of the woods.
He admitted, a bead of sweat trickling down his forehead. He tried to retrace their steps, but every direction looked the same. They were lost. A sudden rustle in the undergrowth made them all jump. They spun around, their hearts pounding, but saw nothing.
Who's there?
Ben called out, his voice trembling. Only silence answered him. Then, without warning, Chris was gone. 1 minute he was there, walking beside them, the next he had vanished. They looked around frantically, their blood turning to ice.
Chris!
Mark yelled, his voice echoing through the silent trees.
Chris, where are you?
But there was no answer. Only the mournful whisper of the wind and the oppressive silence of the woods. Chris was gone.